Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're stepping right into what I can only really describe as a psychological crime scene. We are going to unpack a brilliant and honestly deeply resonant essay by Yassir Sanusi titled The Trap That Killed a Generation's Potential. And look, this isn't just your standard critique of society. It's a full-on dissection of a silent epidemic, one that is quietly paralyzing millions of bright, highly capable minds. We're going to examine the exact anatomy of this rusted, unyielding mechanism, how society arms it, and most importantly, how you can break its hold over you. To really grasp the weight of what Sanusi is talking about here, you have to visualize the central metaphor of his essay. Just imagine a young man, arms tightly crossed against his chest in this deeply defensive posture. He's radiating intense anxiety and vulnerability. And why? Because he is caught squarely within the jaws of a heavy iron bear trap. I mean, you can almost feel the tension in those coiled, rusted springs, right? You can picture the jagged steel teeth just waiting to snap shut with bone-crushing force. But here is the cruelest part of the whole device, the trigger plate directly beneath his feet. It doesn't have spikes. It actually looks completely flat and harmless. It just has a single word stamped right into the metal: wait. You see, in this context, waiting is not a measure of time. It's a mandated passivity. It is the very mechanism of his containment and his paralysis. The absolute moment he accepts the weight, that trigger plate arms the jaws, holding him utterly captive. Okay, let's dive into this and look at what is actually forcing him to stay trapped on that plate. Surrounding him, just pressing right into his personal space, are four disembodied oppressive hands. They're like these relentless, jabbing fingers that create an invisible, claustrophobic cage of societal authority. Let's break down the ideologies these hands enforce. Hand 1 says, just wait, someone will help you. That completely enforces a fatalistic culture of total dependency. Then you have Hand 2 commanding, get a good job, which pushes this dangerously outdated traditional vision of success. Hand 3 starts questioning, why are you learning skills? That is a direct attack on curiosity and self-development. And finally, Hand 4 insists, trying other fields is a waste, enforcing a rigid, linear path that violently suppresses any kind of exploration. Together, these pointing fingers literally dictate his complete paralysis. Now, you might be thinking this is all just theoretical, but it's not. Sanusi shares his own lived experience of navigating these exact pointing hands. I mean, even before he got into university, people were actively trying to shove him onto that wait trigger plate. He was constantly told he was stressing himself out way too much. The prevailing wisdom being whispered all around him was, it's now all about connection, not hard work, so rest. Do you see how incredibly insidious that is? It's framed as this helpful advice, take it easy, relax, but it's actually the trap's core mechanism weaponizing the concept of rest. Stop trying too hard, someone will plug you in, just wait. It's teaching an entire generation that success comes from external intervention rather than internal action. And man, if you try to step off that plate, the environment pushes back, sometimes aggressively. Sanusi had this really strong instinct to save money from a very young age. He wasn't rebelling, he was just trying to secure his own future. And the response? Intense mockery. People would literally laugh at him and say, why are you saving? You might die tomorrow. This proves just how much the environment actively punishes any deviation from the script. They frame proactive self-preservation as pointless or even foolish, but he stuck to his guns. And he points out that later on, his savings actually allowed him to help out the very people who once mocked him. So let's trace his path a bit and see how this builds into a true survival pattern. Sanusi didn't just save money. He embarked on a relentless series of what society deemed unnecessary actions. And these weren't just little hobbies. They were violent yanks against the trap's chains. He learned graphic design. During a prolonged national university strike, known in Nigeria as AUSU, he learned tailoring. Before even gaining admission, he opened a small provision business. Later on, he took an unpaid internship. And this brilliantly illustrates how every single one of these steps was a wedge he deliberately used to pry those iron jaws open. Of course, society looked at all these actions and called them stressful. They actually asked if he was forced to learn tailoring, basically assuming it was some kind of punishment. But the reality was starkly different. Graphic design? Not a waste at all. It opened massive opportunities and brought in real income. Tailoring wasn't suffering. It was true self-improvement, precisely when the traditional education system was completely paused. That provision business taught him about profit, patience, and absolute humility. But most importantly, it taught him to figure things out on his own. He was actively rejecting that wait plate and forging the key to his own escape. And this brings us to the incredible irony of how this whole thing plays out in the long run. The essay highlights a perfect example. A salary earner who previously discouraged Sanusi from learning these unnecessary skills recently reached out to him. And why? Because that same salary earner wanted to learn design to add an extra stream of income. It's crazy. The very people who mock proactive effort, who champion that safe, linear path, often find themselves totally trapped by it. And eventually, they have to seek help from the exact people they criticized. As Sanusi aptly puts it, life really does have a way of humbling opinions. So we are left with a really stark contrast here. On one side, you have what we'll call the approved path. Go to school, graduate, complete your mandatory national service year, wait for a job through a rich uncle, and settle down. It is entirely linear, painfully passive, and completely reliant on sheer luck. On the other side, we have the versatility mandate. This is the uncompromising reality of the modern world. There is absolutely no law that says a lawyer can't learn programming or an economist can't do video editing. In fact, cross-disciplinary flexibility is an absolute requirement to survive and thrive today. The world rewards those who adapt, not those who wait. If you do succumb to the approved path, the outcome is honestly tragic. Sanusi points out that this trap has quietly killed just an immense amount of potential. We're seeing graduates returning home as full-grown adults, completely dependent. They are doing, well, nothing meaningful. They have no job, no skill, and worst of all, no drive. They can't even support their parents. They are totally paralyzed, just sitting around waiting for a mandatory service year or a miracle job that may never, ever come. The trap has completely snapped shut. And you know, misery truly loves company. The deeply unsettling part of this trap is that the people caught in it actually transform into the wardens of the trap. They actively police the boundaries to ensure no one else escapes. When they see someone trying to become versatile, they attack. They ask things like, "You're a lawyer. Why are you learning programming?" They treat versatility as if it were a literal sin. They're just echoing hand number 3 from earlier, attacking the drive for curiosity and proactive self-development just to drag others down into the rust with them. This kind of policing even extends to how we value our own time and effort. Sanusi recalls taking an internship that he went out and applied for himself. When someone found out the school hadn't sent him, they were confused. But when they found out it was unpaid, they were absolutely baffled. "And they didn't pay you?" they asked. This reveals a deeply flawed belief that every valuable thing in life must immediately translate into cold, hard cash. It's a remarkably short-sighted view that totally blinds people to the long-term investments required for real, sustainable growth. Because here is the real currency of stepping off the weight plate. That unpaid internship gave Sanusi exposure and real-world experience that no lecture hall ever could. It provided authentic insight, clarity, and direction. It built his confidence and massively expanded his professional networks. The whole shebang. Not every piece of value shows up as cash right away. Sometimes it shows up as the very tools you're going to need to build your future. This is the ultimate mindset shift, stopping the wait for a handout and instead asking, how can I help myself? Now, we need to be balanced here, for sure. Sanusi acknowledges a secondary school teacher who told him to study hard to get a good job. And actually, scratch that whole school is useless narrative, because Sanusi admits the teacher was right, to an extent. Good grades are incredibly important. They open serious doors for scholarships, international opportunities, and graduate programs. But the trap is thinking that this is all there is. The ultimate danger is hitting pause on your entire life for 4 years just for a degree. You cannot simply do nothing meaningful beyond classwork and just wait to graduate before you actually start living and building. So how do we actually dismantle this iron trap? Sanusi gives us the exact actionable steps. 1. Learn soft skills. 2. Try a business no matter how small it is. 3. Build relationships and networks. 4. Improve your mindset. You absolutely must let your results, your certificates, your network, and your character all grow simultaneously, right now. You don't have to wait for life to begin after graduation or after your service year. You have to build your parachute while you're still in the plane. The modern world belongs to those who learn, adapt, build, and grow actively. Which brings us to our final thought. Look, the pointing hands of society will always be there, telling you to just wait, to stick to the approved path, to not try so hard. But if you don't wake up and start doing something right now, you are simply going to keep growing older while your dreams keep dying. That is the chilling reality of the trap. So the question I want to leave you with today is this. Will you let the iron jaws of the weight plate rust around your potential, Or will you start right now, create a path others can follow, and break the trap? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I truly hope this sparks the momentum you need to step forward.